he's not on Facebook.
All right, guys, we're back for another episode of the Pulling Around Show. We are here for round 2 with John Guffey. Got my man Sean King sitting there with him. We're going to ask him a series of questions, and let's get started. Thanks for joining us again, John.
Oh, thanks a lot. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
How you been?
I've been real good, pretty healthy. My golf game sucks, but other than that, I enjoy life, playing pool, playing with Sean a lot.
Yeah, I heard you've been helping him with his one pocket game.
Well, either that or he's helping me, one or the other.
I need a lot of help. I'm a sucker.
We have fun. That's the main
Shooting a
thing.
hole every time, and then he tells me I shot the wrong shot.
That's
Hi guys, welcome back. I want to give a special thank you to Chris. Chris does most of the hard work in our journey here, and send him a Facebook request, send him a good job, comment on his page what he's asking for ideas. He is spending all day on this sometimes, and I can't do that, but just make sure to show him some love. And if he's selling some t-shirts, buy one, and that'll help us do things like this. So I want to, before you go, because we know you got these stories, we played shape on about 6 stories here. So I want to say where we're at. We're back here at John Guffey's beautiful home in Edmond, Oklahoma, and we're in his pool room. And I'm gonna use this. You can look back at our first video. But what a beautiful pool room! All the trees in the backyard. And so we're just set up here on the pool table, and that's about the most I'm going to talk, besides, just some banter. But tune into this, listen to the end of it, please. And please like, subscribe, share. And with that in mind, John Guffey, one of my best friends. And now we got people wanting to hear your story. So let's go.
Well, I guess to start would be my first pool experience. And I had a friend in grade school that had a snooker table, and he was down in his basement, and he played pretty good snooker because his dad taught him how to play, and I didn't know anything about the red balls and the numbered balls, and he taught me how to play it. He beat me every time because I'd never played. So we enjoyed playing about once a week, and we're only about 12, 13 years old. And I got a little bit better each time we played. And snooker was hard with those little tiny pockets. You couldn't run them down the rail, and the balls were a little bit. It was just a tough game. So I finally got to where I was going to beat him my first time. And I was down. We didn't run. We couldn't run any balls, but we just had a lot of fun. And being 12 or 13, not much to do. So I got down, I think I was shooting in the 7, and I was going to beat him for the very first time. Well, behind my back, he fills his hand up with talcum powder that his dad had down there to make the cue slide through his fingers. Didn't have gloves back then, So he fills it with the talcum powder, and I'm down on that 7 ball, and I pull it back to make the winning shot. And he yells, he throws this talcum powder right at the cue ball, right at my backstroke, and he yells as loud as he can. He yells, "Spooky dust." Now, where he came up with this or even thought of it is beyond me. But I missed the shot. I couldn't even see the cue ball with all this dust going everywhere. And he yelled right on my backswing. You know how that is with people sharking you and stuff. Yep. And so he just laughed his ass off, But I thought it was enough that all this dust was around here and I couldn't see the cue ball, and he yelled at him. But all of a sudden he acted like this talcum powder, this baby powder, had some magical properties, that it was spooky dust. How he came up with that, but we just laughed our ass off, and that was more fun, a memory of my life. And the next time I played pool was when a pool room opened next to the hamburger place. It was in Oklahoma City. It was a high school hangout. And a little five table room opened up next door. It had 4 gold crowns, 9 foot, and 1 snooker table. And of course, I already could play a little bit, So I pretty well. There was only about 3 guys. I was in 9th grade, about 15, my mom used to drop me off there, and a couple times I walked, but I could beat almost everybody in the high school up to the seniors, except for about 3 people. And the guy that ran the place was a black guy named Christopher Columbus Buttram. We loved him like a dad. He was like a second dad to me for sure. And yeah, he worked 14 hours a day, opened it up at 10, worked until midnight on weekends and things, cleaned the windows, cleaned the floor, everything. And he got about a $1.14 an hour. Didn't have a car, rode the bus there. And at the restaurant next door, the high school hangout, well, they wouldn't let him come in there. So I had to walk next door and get him his food and bring it back to him. He got 1 meal a day, because he couldn't leave. And so it wasn't much money, I don't know what's 14 times $1.14, but it couldn't be $20. And he had bus fare and the hamburger. At any rate, so he made up the difference with hustling us kids we'd play quarter on the 5 and quarter on the 9 ball. So he taught us how to gamble and how to hustle. And one of his hustles was he didn't want to run out because he'd lose all his action, because we were just kids, He was about 60. And so he'd play shape on a blast shot. So he'd run that 9 ball around the table or the 5, and he'd make that and spot it back up. So he wouldn't just want to make 50 cents. He'd want to make $1. And I just still hear him today. He'd just say, I'm going to roll the money. I'm going to roll the money. So he just blasts that ball and luck it in. We go, oh, shoot, man. Chris, you are so lucky. But, he hit that 5 ball pretty solid, and it'd go around the table. It had a chance to find a pocket, And we just thought it was lucky, but there was a lot of skill into it. And he'd do the same thing with a 9 ball. He wouldn't just shoot an easy combination. He'd try to luck it in so that he didn't lose his action. So anyway, that's kind of how I taught him.
What was his name?
Christopher Columbus Buttram.
Okay.
And I cried like a baby when he died. As a matter of fact, more than any funeral I've ever been to, because he meant so much to me in my my pool development, teaching me a little bit here and a little bit there. Just watching him, like I said, it was a difference between him eating and not eating, and it was only quarters for us kids. Most of those kids had extra lunch money and stuff like that. It wasn't like, it was hurting us or nothing. It was just, and he shined shoes for money too. So that was my first pool room. And
Now, where's that at?
it was at 59th and Western. Actually, yeah, about 59th and Western, next to the Split T, which Johnny ran the Split T's. So after the Split T folded, Johnny's started the same hamburger joint, has a chain around Oklahoma City, has one in Tulsa, and they have over 400 employees now. But Johnny was the guy that ran the Split T.
Okay.
So
Let's look right here.
then my next pool room was at a high school place. That's where I met Gary Drennan. They called him Driller. He had he was from Britton, Oklahoma, a little small town on the railroad tracks, and he had a paper route. So through the papers, he had about an hour to kill before school, and he'd go to this little tiny snooker parlor, more of like a domino parlor, really. They had a snooker table, and he'd stand on Coke crates so that he could get up to the table high enough to it. And he got really good. So he was my main competition in high school. He was a year older, and he was a little bit better than me, actually. But I kind of caught up with him. He shot better than me, but I played a little bit better shape and managed my game a little bit better. But he could sure shoot better than me. That's why they called him Driller. So we had a lot of fun. He's real famous around Oklahoma City, and he died about 3 years ago. Really, really good friend of mine. So after that was a high school hangout. The next pool room was Chester's, and back then it wasn't called Chester's. It was just called the pool room, and it was at 50th and May. And it's kind of a nice history of it and Oklahoma City. So to take you back further than that, the 50th and May pool room was originally in an office building downtown. And they had all the businessmen at this pool room. So they were guys that insurance agents weren't hourly, they were just on the phone and this and that. And all the businessmen went there. And so then the other places downtown were pretty rough. They were alcohol was illegal in 1959 back then. So they were bootleggers and gangsters and out of town characters that had control over the market here. And so there was one place that was called the Central Club, and that's where even a judge went, and really different type of people that may be connected in this underground bootlegging and gambling. And even Minnesota Fats came here, and those type of people that traveled around, played one pocket, and were involved in some of that high echelon. Maybe before Johnson City, they kind of met around here, and the bootleggers would bring their pool players, and they would have big games in Oklahoma. In Minnesota Fat's book, he says that it was in one pocket was invented in Oklahoma, and I believe him. So, at any rate, the Central Club had all these characters too, and it was kind of rough. So they had a deal in the about late 60s. It's called urban renewal, and they tore down all the old buildings and closed down places and built up the new. So all the pool rooms kind of had to leave. Well, Chester Truelove's opened up a pool room at the south side of Oklahoma City, 44th of May, which is called Lucky's now. So it was always called Truelove's. And Earl Travis he lost his lease at this office building, so he moved his to 50th and May, and that became me and Triller's high school hangout at the very tail end of our senior year. And with when Earl Travis, who owned the pool room, with him came all the businessmen and doctors, lawyers, everything, insurance, you name it. They were just all businessmen. Okay, so they were all hanging around here. We were having a good time playing snooker, whatever it was. We played cards, dominoes, one pocket, 9-ball, everything. Then they closed down the gangster places. So now they moved in. So I met quite a few of them and buddied up with them, and they taught us really how to hustle. And it was a whole different deal. I mean, because that was big money. And one of them was my stake horse at one time, and he was a character too. I got some good stories on him. I don't know if I'll get to that or not. But at any rate, so that's how. No, the doctor wasn't a gangster. Okay. The doctor was an eye surgeon. The doctor came there, and he was at Baptist Hospital about a half a mile from the pool room. He was there every day after surgery. They'd have surgery at 6 a.m, and he was done by 1 and came over to the pool room until 6 and home to his wife and kids. So he was there every day. He actually tried to save me and get me away from pool and wanted me to be an eye surgeon. And one day he took me to eye surgery, and I got up about 5 a.m, had to scrub my hands about, I don't know, 10 times it seemed like, put all the scrubs on, take all my clothes off, and face hair nets, you name it. I went in there, and like I said, he wanted to back me in medical school and wanted me to be a surgeon. And I walked in there, and he started cutting on that eyeball, and I fainted. So that was the end of my.
You fainted?
I fainted. So that was the end. Well, you watch somebody cutting on an eyeball, and you might too. But that was the end of my my career that direction. But so I stuck with pool. So at any rate, in those days, I ended up going to college. Driller had to go to the Vietnam War, and I went to college for 4 years, and that's when I started playing all these road players. And I got kind of famous because me and Doc lost to one guy, Hippie Jimmy Reed, for 500, and they started coming every week. And True Loves would send them. True Loves was the action place. They had Buddy Hall. Well, the reason why Buddy Hall and Grady were there was because a Southside bookie named Fat Eddie. He weighed about 400 pounds, and he had a lot of money. And he'd back everybody, and he just liked action, and he's making money all the time. So Buddy Hall and Grady Matthews, they moved here just to be around the action. One time, Jimmy Rempe flew in town to play Buddy $10,000 set. That's in 1970 something. So that's a lot of money, and so when all these road players would come down there, they'd go to True Loves and they'd say, well, where can we get some action? Well, they'd send them down to pick on me. I was just a college kid, had Doc backing me. And so I played all those guys, and I didn't beat very many of them, but a few of them I beat. A couple of them I broke even, and I could tell that, I had to start walking the parking lot looking for license tags so that I could know if I saw New York tags. Well, I knew somebody walked up to me and played. Oh, yeah, you're from New York. Maybe I don't want to play you for 100 a game, So you have to be one step ahead of them, really. But there was somebody different every week that I had to either play or turn them down, one or the other. Most of the time I'd play, but I'd limit my losses. And because you can't,
Did you spend much time watching Buddy and Grady play?
Oh yeah, yeah. And anytime I got a chance, I played Buddy Cheap one time. This is one of my favorite stories. I watched him play a lot down at one of my favorite games was watching Grady Matthews play snooker with Greg Stevens from Wichita, Kansas. They were both great players, and to watch them play snooker at a high level, it was a lot of fun. But Grady, I played him for 20 a game one time. Just they just begged me to play, because they knew they could beat me, and they'd call me names. They'd call me a North Side Nit, and all this. And they said, well, why won't you bet Grady more? I said, well, why would I play Grady more money? I want to play him less money, And so I played a Buddy $20. I was going to lose probably 100 to him. At any rate, he was giving me the 8-ball, the wild 8. Well, I don't think he was trying very hard. But you kind of got to get up for games. You got to try your hardest, or it really doesn't work out. And I got up for games, and I had to get up for him, or he was going to just run over me. Well, I got him stuck. I just started winning games, and every game he was just crying, "Come on, John, let's bet more money, bet me 40 a game, bet me 40 a game." And we're talking about 1972 or whatever, maybe 71, 72, 73. You want to play for 40 guys? I was up like 3 games or something. I said, no, buddy, I just want to play you for fun for 20 to learn something, And so finally I won another game. I ended up being 9 games ahead of him. And like I said, he wasn't really trying his hardest. I couldn't beat him for nothing. And he was the best player in the world. And but I got up 9 games on him, and he just, come on, let's play. I said, okay, let's play for 40. Well, he breaks and runs 5 racks on me. Chester Truelaws, he says he didn't run 5 racks. He might have missed 1 ball or rolled out, 2 shot, 1 out, and I said, shoot again. He runs, whatever. He beats me 5 in a row. So I gave him $20 and quit. So he beat me, but I'm still 4 games up on him. And he'll tell you the same thing.
Is the big guy the same guy where he wouldn't let the player eat if he didn't make a
No, that was Chester Burke.
Chester Burke. Okay, listen to this, guys. Chester Burke.
Chester Burke. So I used to go to Wichita, Kansas, because you only had to be 18 to get into the bars there instead of 21. So when we were 20, we'd drive about 2.5 hours to Wichita. And Chester Burke owned he was an old-time bootlegger gangster. I think he'd murdered a guy before I'd heard. I don't know. I don't want to spread any rumors, but he was real nice to me. Great guy. I played him in the gin in the back room of his hotel, and I'm sure, any rate, there was probably something going on that I don't know about, but at any rate, I enjoyed his company. So he had a hotel, and it had a restaurant, and it had like 1 bar table in the back room. And I used to go up there and play Junior Brown. He was a good player from there. And so I asked Grady Matthews one time, I said, well, tell me some Chester Burke stories. He says, oh man, that guy was a character. He'd take us on the road and he wouldn't let us eat until we made a score. So, next thing out of Grady's mouth, he says, now, if you don't think that gets you in stroke, then you got another thing coming. So you bear down pretty good when you don't get to eat. So, but that's the life of a pool player. They were broke all the time and needing these backers, and all of a sudden you didn't even have your own money for food. You had to, depend on this guy and his score to eat, So, but yeah, Chester Burke was a character. In the back room, I went to the restroom naturally, and I think this is almost his private room in his hotel that he took me to. So I go to the bathroom, and the lid was made out of acrylic plastic, and inside of the plastic was like these silver dollars, which were big back in the Vegas days. That's what the slot machines paid off, of silver dollars. You didn't get a little slip of paper and walk up to the cage. They came, silver dollars came out of the slot machines, made all this noise and everything. And you did these buckets and put your silver dollars in the buckets, and then you cash them out, and people take them home and have souvenirs with them, and some of them were worth money. But that's how they moved around the money. And so he had all these silver dollars were in the plastic seat of the toilet. You were sitting on all these silver dollars. It was pretty something, really, tell you the truth. The memories. But so at any rate, so back to Chester's. So that was pretty much it. The old pool rooms closed down, and we were hanging around these gangsters, and so you had to have a mix of both. If you had the gangsters and the hustlers and no businessmen, well, there's nobody to hustle. But if you had, it was a perfect mixture in these guys. And at that time, they had these after-hour gambling places. We didn't have casinos back then, so these underworld characters would have after-hours casinos. There was about at least 3 of them, all in different directions and right across the county line. And there was one each direction. So that's the characters were around here. And so when I'd play one of these road players, there was 4 of us that would go in. One was a doctor, lawyer, an insurance guy, and me. And we just we were playing from 100 a game. I was really just playing 25 a game. And so just tried to beat him. It was hard.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
You want to know the history of pool halls? You say it about every time about wanting to know these pool halls. I haven't ran into a person who could tell the history of Chester's pool hall better than him.
Well, let me expand on that too. The reason why it's called Chester's is because I actually had a chance to buy it out with Doc in 1978, and I turned it down. And I'll go into that later. But so we didn't do it, and he bought a different pool room and opened up one on the Northwest Highway in Rockwell with a couple of other people. And so it didn't make it, and it closed down. But so the pool room went through several different hands before it was owned by a guy named Rod Covington, and he kind of expanded too far, tried to open up one in Tallahena, Oklahoma, and it kind of went under. He got in a pinch bankruptcy, and then somebody threw a firebomb through the window. So Chester True Love, that owned True Loves in the South Side, fronting the pool tables to put back in, because a lot of them got burned up and stuff. And so he gave him a note, and he had to pay off the note. Well, he couldn't pay off the note. Chester True Loves ended up kind of having the pool room. Changed the name to Chester's. So one was called True Loves, one was called Chester's, both owned by Chester True Loves. And he put in a grill so that you could double your income there with having all the food and everything. We never had food. We just had potato chips, and we had pre-made sandwiches at one time that you get from different places. And so with the grill, you could double, if you're doing, 500 a day, 400 a day, 300 a day, whatever it is, you could do 600 a day. Well, by the end of the month, that's 18,000. So big deal. So he doubled the income that you could make having a grill in there, and he did real good with it. So he built up the business, and then he just sold it. So these 4 guys ended up buying it from him, I believe, and then just recently it sold again to John Barton. So and it's like I say, it's still called Chester's, but that was kind of the history of how it got to be named Chester's. And now, back in the day when it was businessmen, it was a daytime place because all the businessmen came in there during the day. They were, every walk of life. And And they're retired guys. We had two guys that were 95 years old that their wives would drop them off every day. They'd go back and they played golf on a snooker table. And we had a lot of retired guys. And so it was all daytime and very little nighttime. And now it's very little daytime and mostly nighttime. I don't think these pool rooms could make it without the leagues and the mini tournaments,
Right.
to be honest with you. Because when I go in it, they've only got like 3 or 4 tables going at a time. And then it's completely packed with the leagues and the don't you agree?
Yeah, and then
So at one time,
place.
they had Chester's, there was Aces. Well, it was owned by True Loves too, right? And then
Yeah, it had several owners. At one time it was just an independent deal. It was at one time it was more of a domino parlor than it was a pool room.
and then there was TP's in Midwest City,
Yeah,
Same owner.
True Love's place.
that was True Love's brother on that, Otis.
Okay. So what got you away from pool?
Well, that's a good question. I worked at a bank, and it was Penn Square Bank, and it went under. And after I left, but I was making $3.75 an hour and working my ass off. I mean, I had to be there at 7:30 in the morning. I was filing checks. I hurt my arm, so I was filing checks one-handed. So if you ever do that, you got to open up the file and then grab a check and put it in there. It's pretty easy with 2 hands, but it was hard. And so I had an opportunity to go work at the pool room for $5 an hour. So instead of $3.75, I was making $5. So I jumped at that opportunity and gave up the bank. And it wasn't long before I was kind of running the place for Earl Travis, and we were cutting up the money. I was getting half the money, and I supplied the labor, and he got the other half, and we split everything else. And so it was nothing but gravy because I was the labor, and I had a guy that worked there from 9 to 12, $5 an hour. Actually, I think it was $10 a day, so it was $3.30 there. He's a retired guy, and all he would do is put on the coffee, and he'd start playing gin with his buddies, and he'd vacuum for about 30 minutes. But so I came in, I worked my shift from 12 to 6, and that was when all the business was. And then I had a nighttime guy that I hired, and so I paid that, and we split the money 50-50. And that work really it was the best, one of the best jobs I ever had, because we'd gamble on the side and somebody'd watch the register. Okay, it was just clocking in and clocking out and selling cigarettes until it wasn't much of a hard, strenuous job. So we'd play backgammon for money, and a guy would go in with me and I'd play backgammon and he'd watch the register for me. So it was a pretty easy job. And so I was at the job about, I don't know, a month or so. And every day we would take the money over to make deposits in the bank every day. That's how we kind of, I don't want to talk about the IRS, but anyway, we did it that way. So we had a merchandise account and a pool account. Well, the pool was cash money. It was all, they don't know how many hours we sold that day or whatever, but we'd make deposits every single day and get the receipts and keep track of it and everything. So I went in one day, and I always saw the same cashier, just like you go to a restaurant and have the same waitress. I had the same cashier every day. She knew my routine. Her name was Sue. So I have to switch this story to my wife, my future wife. So Vicki Wood worked at a bank in Bethany, Oklahoma, which is a suburb about 5 miles away. And she wanted to meet a guy. So she did meet one at Bethany Bank. And actually she was kind of harassed by a couple of the executives there and kind of wanted to get away from that herself. So she went to May Avenue Bank, it was called at the time, or Union Bank at 50th and May, to look for a guy. And so I walked in one day, I think it was her second day on the job. And I walk in and she turns around to Sue and she says, "There he is, that's the guy." And so I go to Sue and I just make my deposit. Don't pay any attention to her or nothing. I mean, I'm not looking for a pickup girl there, you know, like a bar or something. I'm just making my deposits. So I walk out. I walk in the next day, about the same thing, and I see Sue again, and so I leave again, and so now she turns around to Sue. She says, "Man, how am I going to get to talk to him?" You know, and she says, "I know an idea." So I walk in the next day. This is like Wednesday, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and I walk up to Sue, and she has a closed window sign there. She says, "I'm sorry, I'm closed. You got to go over to Vicky." So I go over to Vicky, and Vicky's got this big old smile and kind of, she's probably flirting with me, and I'm not even paying attention. I'm just a dumbass kid that just pool crazy, you know, and I don't even pay any attention to her. And so I think that, so I leave, make my deposit with her, get my receipts and leave. And the next day I come in and she got that big old closed window again. So I got to go to Vicky again. And this is on a Friday. So she says, "Hey, why don't you give me some pool lessons?" And I said, "Well, sure, anytime. What do you want to do?" She says, "How about today after work?" I said, "Okay." So I wait for it at Chester's pool room outside. She says, "I get off at 4. I'll be over there at 4:05. I said, "Okay." So here she walks up in a little a sports car, convertible top down, her hair blowing and everything. And I don't know why, but I realized, man, this girl's beautiful. You know, why didn't I notice her at the bank? You know, what a dumbass, you know. And so at any rate, so I said, "Man, this girl's cute. She kind of likes me, I guess, whatever." So I asked her out on a date on Saturday night. She says, "Well, yeah." So I take her to the discotheque at that time. It was in a building, had a high-end restaurant next to it, and we were having a few drinks and had the best time of our lives. We were eating dollar shrimp, which were like, I don't know, $5 shrimp nowadays. You know, they were like huge, and it got to be about I don't know, about 10:30 or something like that. And I said, "Oh shoot, my mom's dog, I've got to go let it out and let go to the bathroom to get fresh water." So my dad had died the year before. My mom, to keep her company, got a Doberman Pinscher. So my mom was out of town or something, and I had to go over there every day and let the dog out. So I had forgotten. I said, "Well, you mind going over and letting the dog out?" She says, "Sure, I don't mind. You know, we had a few drinks, and it was about a mile away." And so I take her over there, and I'm getting the bowl, getting fresh water in there. And I look over there, and she's getting down on her hands and knees, and she says, "Oh, what a cute dog." And she puts her arms around the neck of the Doberman and goes down to kiss her on the nose, and the dog gets scared and bites her. And
On the nose?
no, got her on the ear, right here, ripped her ear off.
Wow.
So now I'm looking here, I said, "Oh man, shit. Here's the best date I've ever had. Here's my dream girl. I'm her guy. You know, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, it was just like fate that I walk into the bank. She says, "He's the one. That's the guy." And so now I'm looking over here at her ears hanging down. And I said, "What the hell do I do now?" You know, I mean, gosh. So only one thing to do. I took her to the emergency room. So now it's about 11 o'clock on a Saturday night at the only hospital that's on the north side of Oklahoma City. So we get there, got to wait about an hour to get to a room in the back. Then we wait another hour by the time the doctor comes to our room. They probably got 8 or 10 rooms, and he's just going from room to room. By this time, I've waited 2 hours there, and we were, you know, a little bit drunk anyway, which I don't drink much, to be honest with you. So I'm laying on one of those tables, and she's sitting in the chair, you know, because I'm just like, so he comes in, he says, "What's wrong with you, son?" And I said, I slurred my words. I said, "Well, it's not me, Doc, it's her over there." So he says, "Okay, let's take a look at you." "Oh yeah, you got a problem with that ear, you know." So I left to go get her stuff at the house because I knew this was going to take a while. And I come back, and while I'm gone, he tells her to never see me again, that I was trouble. So he takes about another 2 hours because she's gorgeous. I mean, and he wanted to get her ear back to where he wasn't a plastic surgeon, but he could take in big old stitches and it would look like crap. He took about 50 of the littlest, tiniest stitches you ever seen, and he'd leave rooms to go take care of these other people, leave her, and kept coming back and back. He couldn't just do her and let, stiff everybody else that was waiting. So it took forever. So he did about 50 stitches, and I swear you couldn't even tell she had ever had a dog bite on her ear by the time he was done with her. It was unbelievable. So we got back to her place. I take her home to her place, and it's like 4:35 in the morning. And she says, well, it's pretty late. You don't have to stay. You don't have to drive home. You can stay here if you want. And I said, okay. So I don't even think I kissed her, but just fell asleep right then because we were just dead tired. And the next day, I was rooming with a guy named Dave Gentile, who everybody knows he ran Oklahoma City. He lived with me at the time. And I went to him the next day, which was Sunday. And I said, Dave, I met a girl, I'm moving out. And I took my stuff and I moved in with her the next day. And we bonded that night, and we stayed together 42 years, had 4 kids. And before that, after that. So I kept my job at the pool room for that summer. This was in May. And that summer, Doc comes to me and he says, hey, we got a chance to buy the pool room. Earl wants to retire and get away from it, and I'll put up all the money, and we can buy this if you want to, and I'll put up all the money, and then you can run it. So now I was going from getting half the money, I was going to get 3/4 of the money, because I was going to get his partner. So I was going to get half for running the place and the labor, and then I was going to get half for being half owner with him. So I talked to Vicky about it, and she says, well, no, I really want to marry you and have kids. And I really don't want them to grow up around the pool room, because there were gangsters around there. We had 4 murders, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. We had 4 murders. We had 1 murder by then. And I was friends with everybody. You wouldn't have believed that there was any trouble with that, but it was a pool room. And she wanted me away from that, away from the raised kids, and that was her dream. That's why she picked me, because she wanted to have kids and get married. And so I loved her enough that I gave up the pool room and gave up the ownership, and I quit playing pool. We got married in December, and so I quit the pool room. And then after that, it was brutal trying to find jobs that paid me like that or was that easy. I tried to sell cars. Nothing was steady. You'd sell some cars and then there'd be slow months, and I probably wasn't good enough at it. And I sold insurance and went from job to job. And I was selling cars when Jim Ingram wanted me to buy his pool cue business. And I did that, and we took a home improvement loan. Basically, it was $5,000 for all of his machinery and all the equipment. And then he promised to teach me how to make them in the next however long it took. Months, he came over to my house every day showing me stuff. And so that's how I got into making cues on the side and repairing them and this and that. Got into that business. So there you have it. So that's, but me and Vicky,
she didn't mind you making cues. She just didn't want you to be a pool player.
Yeah. There was,
you can make cues from home with your kids there.
Absolutely. The pool room it had too many characters. You had these gangsters and stuff, and there was drugs around there. Let's face it, there was drugs, and there were some characters, and it's not really like that today. I don't see any drugs going on much at all. If they smoked pot, and it's legal now all of a sudden. So, but it wasn't like then. You had drug dealers, and you had all kinds of. We had a pimp that was around there that was involved in big time crime. He might have been controlled in 2 states for all I know. He was murdered in prison. So there was quite a bit of that element there. There was 4 murders. One was the after hours place across the county line. He got into a diamond deal, left his car at Chester's, drove out there, and he brought the money for the diamond deal. Well, they just killed him and cut off his head, cut off his hands, and cut off his feet. And they didn't find it for about 9 months or a year or something like that. A farmer out there was draining his pond, gonna dredge it and get it deeper and everything, and found those body parts, and they had the funeral about 9 months later. He was a good friend of mine. He was a great guy, but he was a political connection. So he married into the sheriff's office, one of the daughters or whatever, and so he was kind of the connection to politics. And one of the other big gamblers went and partners with him. And once he was gone, then the other gangsters lost their political pull.
A little bit of water.
I got plenty of, there's, okay.
No, same for you.
So anyway, once I killed him, then it changed hands. Who was running this place for probably other people. Then there was another, the guy that taught me how to play one pocket. He was in another diamond deal, and he was murdered. I've never understood all the details of it. Probably don't want to. I knew the guys that actually did it, and they went to death row. And I was going to go see them when they were on death row, but I decided against it. I said, I don't even want to know, because it's way beyond me and way maybe different elements that I don't want to be around. Another guy was killed.
Oh yeah, there's 3.
There's 4 actually. There was another guy that was in on that last diamond deal, and I don't want to get into his deal, but he was the fence. And but this other guy, he was from New York. His name was Steve Weinberg, and he went in with some of the guys to open up a foosball parlor. Well, that was vending machines, and it was all quarters, all cash. They rented the place. Well, they went to a bank to get the loan. So he signed with the banker on all that stuff and signed off on that. And I think he was stealing quarters because he had the keys to the machines, all foosball. And right. I mean, I was about the time Miss Pac-Man was out and that type of stuff. And it was all the vending machines, probably pinball, whatever, but there was it was all quarters, and he probably was stealing quarters. He got murdered. So I'm lucky I got away from all this stuff. That was all between 1970 something and 1985.
Let's talk about a dangerous situation that you've been in. I think it was in Cleveland.
Yeah, that was a really dangerous one. I was probably in dangerous. Let me save that for just a second. So I moved to, I got to go back because this is 1976. I really didn't know what to do with my life. That was before the Penn Square Bank job. I went to LA and stayed out there. And LA was different than the pool rooms around here. There was only one pool room that anybody ever talks about. That was Hard Times in Bellflower. And I went to one, and it's close to downtown LA, and there were gypsies in there. And I'd never met a gypsy, but they were from Eastern Europe. And they were just homeless type of people that wandered. They called them gypsies, but this place was really different. But I went to one bar to play pool in LA, and it was 12 blocks from Watts. And if you don't know where Watts is, that's where the LA riots were in the 1960s. They burned half the place down, and it was really, really dangerous. I walked in there. It opened at 1 p.m. to tell you how dangerous it was. And when I walked in the door, they had a couch over the side that was kind of a terrible looking couch, and there was a guy sleeping on the side of it, laying on it. It just opened. So we go playing some pool in the back, and we're not gambling at all, really. I mean, there's nobody to play in there. But I went outside to smoke a cigarette with a couple of guys, and this guy starts telling me about how he robbed people coming out of banks. He'd watch them with their money, taking out their money, and then he'd hijack them on the way to the car. And I'm thinking, what am I doing around these people? I might be next, but I went to another bar in Riverside, California. That's where I met my first Hells Angels. And this guy was really nice. I didn't have a problem with him at all. We just sat out there and smoked. And he was just a motorcycle nut and this and that. But I met a guy named Billy Mays, Mays. He's the best shuffleboard player that ever lived. He won the tournament, the world championship, 25 years. You can Google him. He's the best that ever lived. You can watch his trick shot videos. So he tells me this is the way it is when you're traveling around. If you don't know somebody that knows where to go and who to play and this and that, that's most of the. If you're just wandering around, it's almost impossible. So he tells me to come up to the World Championship of shuffleboard. It's going to be in Sacramento where he lives. I said, okay. So we took a little road trip up to Sacramento, and we got up there, and there wasn't any action at all. They wouldn't gamble. Well, I wasn't that big of a hustler anyway. But I had trouble in every town on the way. The first town I went to was Barstow, I think. And I went to the little pool room and beat this guy out of I don't know, it was $20 or $40 or whatever it was. And he says, well, I don't have any money. I got to get my money from my mom. So follow me up to the hospital. We said, okay, whatever. What are you going to do? And so we go to the hospital. I meet his mom. They take us down to the cafeteria, had the best meal ever at the hospital. And next thing you know, they ditch us. And we're in this huge hospital. We had no chance of finding him and his mom. So if you want to be a road player, you better learn some stuff and go with somebody who knows what they're doing, because by sure we didn't. The next town we go to, we stop for gas. No, we stopped for a restaurant to get food. It was quite a few hours later. We hear these pool tables being knocked around. So we go back there, and there's this guy, and he's about 40, 45, and maybe he's 40. And he's with these two young girls. He'd get a table.
Let's try again.
So anyway, he chases us out of the after I guess his wife's age, he got offended and chased us out to our car. My buddy wanted to go back in with his pepper spray, and I said, no, let's just move on.
He was setting you up.
I guess I don't know what was going on. He didn't know that the son-in-law was going to get that offended by because they did look really young, and he probably married them pretty young. She was probably older than what she looked, but the other guy.
I don't think it would matter what age you said. They were looking to fight somebody.
Yeah, could have been. I don't know. It was a strange. By the time I finish these stories, you don't want to go into the central area of California. It's different than the big cities.
I've been there once.
Yeah. So the next town we go to, my buddy plays poker and wins like 200. I play a guy. These were all just locals, and they had poker was legal in these places. And so I played a guy $10 8-ball. Well, I beat him 11 games in a row. So I'm up 110. And I don't know why these guys, I don't understand you. It didn't take long to see that he couldn't beat me, but he just kept playing, And now all of a sudden the balls are tied up. Well, nowadays you wouldn't think nothing of it. I played a safety. And I guess he just expected me to blast, and I should have, now that I look back on it. But I just kind of hit one of the balls and I didn't break him up or nothing, and I should have. I'd beat him 11 in a row, but it pissed him off, So, and he was probably one of his best customers, So we realized it's about time for us to leave. The poker game busted up because my buddy won the money. So he goes out to the car and backs up his Camaro to the front door. So I'm lily-dallying around waiting for him to.
What do you mean backs it up to the front door?
Well, that's how you can get a quick exit.
Okay.
The parking lot was right up next to that. So instead of walking through the parking lot a long ways to your car, he backed it up to where you don't have to back out. You just pull out and drive off. So,
Okay.
so he backed it up as close to the door as he could get. And so I don't know what I did, but I walked over to the door, and this owner walks up to me, and he's got a gun in his pants right there, half exposed. And he said something to me. I can't even remember what he said to me. He says, "It's about time y'all leave," or something like that. Yeah, that sure is. Not you flashing that gun on me, So I couldn't get through that door fast enough. And it took me about 10 steps to get in his car. And we just drove off as fast as we could and didn't look back. But okay, so then that's 3 towns in a row. The next town we go to was Modesto, I think.
You can see why his wife wanted him to get out of pool. He probably told her these stories.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be a road player. They can have that. You're going to eventually get a gun pulled on you, and they're going to get you in the parking lot or whatever. You got to fade a lot of heat. You got to get paid off. But anyway, so now the next town we do is Modesto. We go into this one place. We said, "Hey, where's the place you can get some pool action?" They said, "Well, there used to be a place up here, but it closed down last week because they had a murder." And I'm thinking, golly, a week earlier, and there might have been me, So at any rate, that was enough of that. We got Sacramento, and the guys, the shuffleboard players from Washington, they played pool, but they didn't want to gamble with me. And I said I probably wasn't a very good hustler anyway. I was used to being the hustlee, not the hustler. So. But in Cleveland, in 1973, I was in Cleveland, and I worked in an amusement park up there for a whole summer. I was supposed to go on the road with Ronnie Allen, and I wish I would have, because he would have taught me an awful lot, and all this stuff wouldn't have happened to me. But I worked in an amusement park in Ohio, and my friend lived in Cleveland. So every other Cleveland, I'd go to Cleveland to see him, and then he'd come to see the girls that worked at Cedar Point Amusement Park. And so this one weekend, I go over to Cleveland. We go to this all-black pool room in downtown Cleveland, 7th and Euclid. And so I play this black guy one pocket for $5 a game. I beat him 7 games, $35, no big deal. And the guys around watch. I'm thinking, well, they're just admiring me playing, and this guy's doesn't care. It's kind of like me playing, a good player, And so we leave, and I remember a little kid, he must have been 11 or 12 years old, sees that we had won the money. He follows us out the door trying to sell us watches. I don't know if they're those fake watches or whatever, but chases it out the door trying to sell us watches. So about 2 weeks later, we go back in, and we're dressed real nice. This guy worked at a restaurant, and so he was dressed up like you have to be to wait on tables, and so we go back in the same pool room. I play the same guy for $5 a game, and there's another group of blacks. We're the only white guys in there except for the guy running the place. The guy running the place was a ping pong player. He'd come in second in the U.S. Open. Unbelievable player, and they had a ping pong table in there. And there was this other black of a group of blacks that were away from the table about 30, 40 feet. And they're just over there talking. They're not really watching the game. And so I think I'm up a couple of games on him or something. And next thing you know, me and my buddy have a different view of this, and it's been since 1973, so I can't remember. But I remember 2 guys walking, and he says there was just one. So take your pick. But at any rate, the guy was huge, 6'4", 300 pounds, had nunchucks under his arm. And he comes over to me and he says, "Hey, son, there's no gambling in here." He had a voice that was so deep you couldn't have believed it. And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." So I went over to this guy. I says, "Hey, we'll just quit paying after every game. We'll just pay at the end, So we kept played about, 5 or 6 more shots. The guy comes over to me again with these nunchucks. And I've never seen a guy that big and has nunchucks. I'm thinking, what the hell? Who is this guy? So he raises his voice again. He says, "Son, I told you there's no gambling here. You get your ass out of here." And he escorts us out the door. We get out the door. Once we get outside to the sidewalk, and it's downstairs, it's a scary place, all dark, dimly lit. He says, those other guys were going to kill us. The other group of guys were going to stab us to death for hustling their brother.
Last week or whatever, or when you went back.
When we went back and played the same guy with this different
So
group.
he saved you. The big guy
They-
with nunchucks
that-
saved you.
The guy, what happened was the guy that was running the place, it was a ping pong player, the only white guy, he had called the cops. See, there was no cell phones back then. That was the only phone in the place. He had called the cops. They sent down an undercover cop to come get us. That was in the days they called them mod squad. So they were undercover guys. He didn't carry a gun, but he had those nunchucks. And so yeah, he had called and saved us and saved our lives and got us out there. And so you just never know. You got to be careful who you beat out of money. That was $5 a game. Think about it. You can imagine these guys carrying around $10,000 or $20,000 at a time. So that's about all of that story I got.
All right, we'll if you like these dangerous situations, shout out to us, let us know, and there's plenty more. But I want to move on to favorite pool players. Favorite pool players.
Well, I think I got to thinking about this the other day, and one of my favorite players is from Oklahoma City, Chip Compton. I really like him. He's a really nice fellow. He's a great player. I wish he'd won his last two matches because I always pull for him so hard. But he's playing some awful tough players when you're playing Shane and whoever. But he's one of my favorite players. Buddy Hall would definitely be one of my favorite players of all time. Great guy, nice fellow. He was the best 9-ball player of his era at that time. And actually, Efren Reyes, you ask him, and he'll tell you that Buddy Hall was the best American player back then. And I have so many of them. Alan Hopkins, I have utmost respect for. He had his industry convention in Pennsylvania, so he did a lot for the industry. He used to put on tournaments. You know, he's the guy that you would see commentating and wearing a tux. Did a lot for the, you know, great classy guy. You know, and as of today, my favorite player is Fedor Gorst. I've never seen anybody as good as him. His safeties are unbelievable. His break's good. He jumps about as good as anybody. I've only seen him dog about 3 balls. He missed a 5-ball. I mean, it's amazing. I've watched hours and hours and hours, and I remember he missed a 5-ball. You know, I mean, and he's been on the end rail, jacked up, and he makes every shot. Playing in his last match, he missed a couple. I can't remember who he lost to, but he did miss a couple shots, and he made a couple of mistakes in playing John Smith one pocket, but it's unbelievable how good he plays. It's just
If
amazing.
you're not a Fedor Gorst fan, you're dog.
You hate pool.
You're not watching pool.
If you're not a Federer fan, you hate pool.
I just love watching him play. He's just fantastic, and his strategy is never out of line. I mean, you couldn't play better than him if you had ball in hand every shot. You know, I mean, it's just like, so yeah, he's my favorite player of all time, to be honest with you, to watch. And so anyway,
we could do a whole talk about Federer. Like you and I could watch a pool match, or the three of us could all watch a pool match that Federer's playing in, and just commentate, because we're already going to watch the match anyway.
Well, so let me ask you this, which is, I mean, all over the internet, is what do you think about him being on the Mosconi Cup this year?
You know that?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. Fantastic. He lives here now. He just doesn't have quite a citizenship, I don't think. But I think he's lived in
does have a
Indiana.
citizenship now.
He does have it now?
He does. He got approved. You know, because the reason he left Russia was because of the situation going on over there.
Yeah.
So he left a war-torn country to come to the United States to seek asylum.
Yeah.
And he's welcomed here by everywhere. Everywhere
Yeah.
he goes, players talk about him, how great he is. He has a channel. He answers questions. He shows himself practicing.
Yeah.
And he's got a great team behind him. The Sword Brothers. They do a lot for pool. And he's just a class act. I hope he gets the first Nike deal. Or Under Armour. I like Under Armour better. But he's that type of guy that pool has right now. So I watch everything he does.
Well, he's done so much for pool. I mean, I get to watch his podcast. That's why I watch him so much, because he's got his own and they let him use it because but he's doing a lot for pool, and he does a lot of stuff for free. Watching his practice sessions, playing the Ghost and stuff. I've watched that. He does interviews. He's
very approachable.
He's really good for the game. I sat next to him in a tournament 2 years ago in Dallas. And I didn't know who he was. And the girl, Christina, was the best girl player I've ever seen. Now, I'm sure there's better ones, but I haven't seen them. She was unbelievable too. And I think she'll prove it in the future.
Okay, how about some I think you and I follow kind of the same people because we talk about the stuff we watch together. But how about some people that aren't in the current scene, some people that maybe players or people watching this would have never heard of that you met, favorite players from the past?
Well, Mike Massey was one of them. When I met him, it was about 1971, and his nickname was Tennessee Tarzan. And he'd go to bars and do one-handed push-ups. He'd bet people X amount of dollars that he could, I can't remember how many he'd do, whether it was 100 or whatever he'd do, 50, I can't tell you, but he'd do one-handed push-ups, two-handed push-ups. He supposedly, and I never saw him do some of this stuff, but he could kick the ceiling and land on his feet. He could jump over the pool table flat-footed. And he was unbelievable. He could play one-handed as good as anybody back then. And he told me one time he played with 1 foot. He'd get a bar table, a bar stool.
And that guy's got the biggest hands of anybody I've ever seen.
And his trick shots were unbelievable.
A whole rack of 9-ball in his hand.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He was a character, and what a great guy he was. See, I met him right after he turned to Christianity, and that's another story. But he got brought to town by a guy named Pete Peters, who was an Indian guy from Sapulpa, Oklahoma, right outside of Tulsa. And he used to take guys on the road, this Pete Peters. And he had a pool room there, and it was like a bookie joint. They had all the games on a chalkboard. They had all the lines, just like you find in the newspapers nowadays, where it's open. But back then, on a chalkboard, they could just erase it real quick. And I'm sure it was paid off or something, but it was a kind of a bookie joint. And pool players, he'd take them on the road. He took me on the road one time with a professional domino player. And we went to these little tiny towns, and nobody played pool, but they played dominoes with this other guy. I'd go back in the back and practice, and at any rate, that was just part of the hustle. These guys had bet this guy, and he was unbeatable. So let's see, what other characters? I had the other character I had was a guy. I'm at Chester's pool room one time, and the owner answers the phone on the wall. And all of a sudden he says, "Here, I'll let you talk to Guffey." So he hands me the phone, and I said, "Yeah, this is John. What's up?" He says, "Hey, I'm down at the bus station, and I'm from Tennessee, and I can put a pool ball in my mouth and spit it out and make spot shots." He says, "If you come get me down here, I'll make you some money betting I can do this on the side." And I said, "Well."
He calls the phone, you answer the pool room phone, he's at the bus station.
Yeah.
And he's telling you, you don't know him, you never heard of him, he's just saying,
here's another guy on the road that's broke, thinking that guys are going to bet your game, and he's broke, and he took a bus from someplace in Tennessee. So I go down and I said, "Well, this is a pretty interesting story. I'm not doing nothing today anyway." So I drive downtown to the bus station, pick the guy up, put him in my car, and drive him back to 50th and May. It's probably about, I don't know, 6 or 7 miles in traffic or whatever. And talking to him on the way, and I So I walk him over to the table. I said, okay. He says he can even do it with, I don't know if he had false teeth or how he gets in his mouth. I don't have a clue how he did it.
That's gotta be it.
But he'd stick this ball in his mouth. And he says, okay, watch this. And he spits it out and makes a spot shot. And I says, damn, that's pretty good, you know? And he says, okay, watch this. So he puts a ball in the corner. He says, okay, now I'm going to make this ball 3 rails. And he says, you've heard of right-hand English, haven't you? And I said, well, sure. He says, well, I'm going to put left tongue English on this one. So, so he spits it out of his mouth, and he sticks his tongue on and fires out of his mouth and puts left English on it with his tongue, and it goes 3 rails around the table with the correct English on it and makes the 3 rail shot. And I said,
Come on, Chris.
I said, okay, whatever. So he doesn't get anybody to bet him that he can't do this stuff. He doesn't make a quarter. I think I'd take him back to the bus station and never see him again in my life. Left tongue English. I mean, the characters that you meet at this stuff, you just can't, you just have no idea, you know, that,
Well, I like the video where Tommy Kennedy's juggling the pool balls on the table. And then they come out with the game where they put the Roomba on the table, and you know, you put start on the Roomba, you know, the little robotic vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
They put it on the table and let it go, and they bet on which ball they think the Roomba will make first. And whatever ball it makes, whoever's got that gets everybody's money around the table.
Who would have thought of that?
I think it was Roberto Gomez.
They used to have a game at the state fair like that, and they'd drop a mouse, and you'd have to bet and see which color hole the mouse flew into, and you win a pack of cigarettes. And it had all these colors all the way around the whole wheel.
You got to get the mouse to push the ball into a hole.
Well, speaking of cue balls, there was a guy named Cue Ball Kelly that I met in 1975 with Scott Smith. Scott Smith was a pool player from Colorado, and this Cue Ball Kelly was a referee. Well, they had a player rate, and the player rate was half if you roomed with somebody. So I roomed with this guy from Minnesota named Ron Dobolinski, I think was his name. Scott Smith got to room with Cue Ball Kelly. Well, Cue Ball Kelly was not only a referee, but he does this trick shots. So he would take a cue ball and put a rack of 8 ball out there with the 8 in the middle, and he would 3 rail the cue ball and claimed that he could make the 8 ball in the corner pocket in so many shots, and you wouldn't have believed it was possible. But he'd start chipping away at the balls in front of the cue ball, the 8 ball, and then finally move the 8 ball, and then he'd 3 rail it and make it in the side pocket. Well, he taught Scott Smith in 1973 how to be a professional referee and influenced him. And Scott Smith has been doing the referee jobs and tournament director for 50 years since that.
Yep.
So,
yep,
kind of interesting stories how it's all got along. But I would have liked to see the film of this Cue Ball Kelly doing that again, because it was amazing. You wouldn't think he could do it in so many shots, and he did.
Thank pool player.
You got any other questions for me, Chris?
No, sir, I do not.
Well, I've talked a lot. I know that.
That's why we're here.
Yep, we're glad you joined us again.
Well, I enjoy telling these stories. I don't tell them to hardly anybody else. Nobody asks me, and I got probably more than that. You know,
We'll
can't tell you how many characters I've met.
We'll save them. We'll get
All
you.
right.
We'll get you on the. We'll put it on our Patreon and make people pay to listen to these
Yeah.
stories.
Well,
hey
you
guys, go ahead.
get some feedback, and people like them, and I'll do it again. If they
Right.
don't, then I'll just practice pool or something.
All right.
Mow my
Guys,
lawn.
appreciate you joining us today on another episode of the Pooling Around Show. If you enjoy content like this, hit the subscribe button down below, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment and let us know how we're doing. And we'll see y'all next time on the Pooling Around Show.
Thanks a lot for having me.